In this lesson, we are going to discuss how one can count by weighing. Now, what that means is, instead of counting how many things you have, you can use measurements in order to count. So, you guys might wonder how a company like, say, General Mills can figure out if they have the correct number of Honey Nut Cheerios in each box. Now, as you can imagine, it would probably be pretty inefficient to count each piece and then put them in there. That would take a long time. So what they actually do is they weigh the boxes and the bags, and they sort of do a tare. They zero it out, and then they add Honey Nut Cheerios. That's the box of Honey Nut Cheerios, and this is the bag. And they add Honey Nut Cheerios until they get to the correct mass. And they keep on putting them in there. And they do this on a balance. And then when they read that balance to get to the correct mass, they send it over to the machine to seal it up. Now, all they really need to know is they need to know a ratio of mass to Cheerios. And what they do is they have some sort of average mass per Cheerio, and they can calculate that. Now, what we're going to talk about is we're going to briefly discuss something that we talked about in our penny lab. So for our lab, the slope of the pre-1982 pennies was approximately 3 grams per penny. And we can use that information to figure out how many pennies are in a mass, or find the mass of a certain number of pennies. So, we have 900 grams of pennies, we can figure out how many pennies those are. So, let's say let's use some dimensional analysis. We have 900 grams. We want to know how many pennies we have. So we use our penny to gram ratio, and we know that 1 penny was about 3 grams. So we can calculate that in that 900 grams we had 300 pennies. It's a lot quicker to measure the mass of something than to count. If you can imagine, it would probably take a few minutes to count out 300 pennies. Whereas it would only take a few seconds to measure out that 900 grams and use this ratio. We can also use to count, like the Coinstar machines or the bank. They don't sit around and count pennies. That's very inefficient. So what they do is they figure out, well, how much mass would I need? So, for example, if you needed 10,000 pennies, we can use some dimensional analysis. We want to convert to mass, and we know the ratio of mass to pennies is 3 grams for every 1 penny. And notice how the units cancel out. Pennies will cancel out here, and we're left with grams. And so instead of counting out that 10,000 pennies, we can just measure 30,000 grams of pennies, or 30 kilograms. So that's an easy way. Notice how your units cancel out up here, and we're left with what units we're left with in the problem. Pennies and pennies, and grams, and that's what we want to find. So this is how chemists count particles. As you know, particles are very, very, very small. So we can't really count them. But what we use is we know that there's a mass ratio that exists so that we can count by weighing. And we're going to be doing that a little bit. We're going to be using that for the rest of the year. So it's an important concept to understand.